Well, by the time the cars, which John Ellison has been describing, or the bodies rather, which John Ellison has been describing, reach the point at which I am standing now, a very great deal of work indeed has been done on them. In fact, many of the intestines which he mentioned have by that time been added. They come into the main works again, and at once they are lifted up onto an elevated production line. It's elevated because obviously a lot of work has to be done underneath the motor car during its construction stages, and so the chaps who are working underneath stand on floor level. Those who are working on the top part of the car are up about 4 feet 6 inches in the air. That is over to my left, 3 sides of a giant rectangle. The bodies coming in on the far left-hand corner, moving round, having the control pedals added, the steering wheel, all the multiplicity of cable which goes in the modern motor car for lights, for traffic indicators and so on, until finally they come round to this point, which, as it were, is the entry to the home straight of the production line. And here, the motor cars are married up. This is where the body meets the works. Immediately in front of me are 2 production lines which terminate at this point. On the one on the left, I see the finished front end of the works, the front axle with the springs, the brake blocks, and the engine and gearbox, of course, mounted in the center. About 20 feet away to the right is the back end of the works, the back axle, the springs, and the transmission shaft. These 2 halves, then, of the works are swung up into the air on overhead rails. They're dropped down onto a moving conveyor belt in front of me, and here the 2 are joined together. And at this very moment, passing slowly along the conveyor belt in front of me is, shall we say, the skeleton of a motor car. The front half of the works, the back half of the works, only connected by the transmission shaft, because, as we heard earlier, there is no chassis frame as we know it on this motor car. Well, then the skeleton runs up a ramp onto the elevated part of the production line, and a body swings over. At this moment, one is being lowered down onto the skeleton, a very slight bump, down it goes, and now there, for the first time, we have something which really begins to look like a complete motor car. The body has met the engine, the wheels are added, and so on down the line. And in other words, we are rapidly approaching the final stage. Well, now, over on my right, I can see Mr. Abe Smith, who's one of the senior guides here, showing a small party round the work, so I think we'll just eavesdrop with our microphone and see what he's got to say.
Now we reach the final assembly line. Everything that we've seen leads to this point. The front assembly, the engine, the transmission, and the rear axle. The body up above is being lowered into position. The number of vehicles being produced on this one conveyor is between 80 and 90 in the course of a 9-hour day.
80 or 90 brand new motor cars rolling out every day. It makes you think, doesn't it, if you've been waiting for one. Well, now, one of the gentlemen in the party which Mr. Smith was showing round, I've already had a word with, and I find that, purely by coincidence, he is a member of one of our large overseas development corporations, and I imagine, sir, that quite a lot of the machinery which you've seen being made here is by no means new to you.
No, I have seen a lot of it. I've done about 35,000 miles in the last 6 months. I've touched every colony in Africa. I've seen them all, from the Thames lorries and the various types of machinery, all the various types of crawlers and everything else. And I have a great interest in coming here. In fact, it's one of the reasons, having seen the other side, why I wanted to see the manufacturing side. Sir, may I ask what is your net impression, having seen the vehicles on the job, in seeing them made? Is it more complicated, for instance, than you thought? No, I should think. It seems to me the machinery is doing far more than I anticipated it would do. But obviously the supervision at the back is there.